pod bay doors, please, Hal.
The pod bay doors are open on our special Mandalorian vlog. I'm Jerry Dean Roberts of ArmchairCinema.com and also overthinkingoscars.wordpress.com. Here with my covert co-host, the critic, dare I say, legend from TalkMovie.com, Mr. Doug Heather. How the heck are you today, sir?
Don't play with your food.
I knew you were going there.
He finally got a face hugger.
Yes.
And it was a playful face hugger, so it was not scary, so I was happy about that.
Welcome to our discussion of Mandalorian episode, is it episode 10? Or is it 11? Subtitled The Heiress.
The Heiress.
And you remember how last week I talked about the first two felt like appetizers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I got my appetizers. They're wonderful. Now let's get to the entree. This is the entree.
This is the beginning of the entree.
Yeah, this is the beginning of the entree.
Yeah.
We're getting into the meat of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really appreciated this.
I do too. He gets the frog lady to Tetch.
To her husband.
To her husband, who wastes no time in fertilizing those eggs.
No, she does not.
Did you notice that? Like, they get there, and there's already one hatching by the time he brings the kid in for them to wash.
Yeah.
Like, wow. That was fast.
It was also nerve-wracking because I'm thinking...
He's going to do something, yeah.
Because, I'm also thinking when she's approaching him, I'm like, please nobody shoot him. Don't shoot the kid. Don't shoot the dad. Don't.
Yeah,
This had a happy ending.
I was glad that the frog lady had her happy ending.
Yeah.
And to really quickly, we find out who the Mandalorians are.
Yeah.
That he's being led to by the frog man.
Mm-hmm. And it is.
And it is none other than the former ruler of Mandalore, sister to Duchess Satine. Her name is Bo-Katan.
Yep.
Played by sci-fi legend Katie Sackhoff.
Yes.
Best known from Battlestar Galactica. Also shows up in virtually every other science fiction thing there is. At some point or another, you're pretty sure you're going to see her.
She's making her bones in sci-fi.
She made her bones in sci-fi. And I am waiting, personally, for Mark Shepard to show up somewhere in The Mandalorian. Because Mark Shepard is seriously in everything contemporary sci-fi television. He's Crowley on Supernatural. He was Romo Lumpkin on Battlestar Galactica. He's in Doom Patrol. He's in like he was in Doctor Who. He's been in like everything, and I'm waiting for him.
You know who I'm waiting for? I'm waiting for Tamir Morrison.
Well, we know he's coming.
Well, we know he's coming back, but I'm ready for Tamir Morrison because he needs a redemption. Because because Attack of the Clones was so dry, and he didn't really get a chance to give a great performance. And so I'm ready for this to be his comeback for Star Wars.
I'm looking forward just for that performance because
he is a hell of an actor.
The way he just hit the look of him at the end of episode 9 of The Mandalorian, not episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Just that hard, weather-beaten face, and just
a damaged face.
It looks like he is going it looks like he has a really good idea of where to take the performance just from that. Just look at
Mhm.
his face, just
Yeah.
that determination on his face. I'm excited to see what he brings to it. Um, I really enjoyed this episode. We got to see some Moncals, we got to see some Quarrens. Uh,
Hmm.
we actually got to see Quarrens not with just rubber tentacles
Right.
hanging off their face.
They're seafarers. I didn't know that. That's
Oh
interesting.
yes, the Quarren are the co-natural habitators of Moncala.
Hmm.
Um, they're like it's them and the Moncals that
Hmm.
live on Moncala. So uh, it's interesting to see them off-world but still together.
And again, and I always said this, Star Wars is best because of the inclusive universe that it takes place in.
Hmm.
And by that, I mean it's not just a population of characters to fill the background. You sense that everyone has you sense that everyone has to make a living.
And every single person could have their own story within this
Right.
universe.
And this goes all the way back to A New Hope.
Yeah.
Everybody has to work. Everybody has to eat. Everybody has to do something.
It is the very definition of a lived-in universe.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's not the pristine sci-fi of the 50s.
Right.
It's
Or
it's
even
now
Star Trek.
or even Star Trek, yeah.
As much as we love Star Trek, but
Well,
this is an
Star Trek later, as a result of Star Wars,
mhm,
started to take on this kind of lived-in
right.
universe feel, but the original series, yeah, no.
Everybody's going somewhere.
Hmm.
Everyone has an agenda of their own, and so you feel like he's traveling among just different people as you would.
Right.
And here we get to see the Moncals at work.
Yeah.
Here we get to see the Quarren at work,
Right. And we get
and
to it's a look now.
of course the Quarrens here are jerks. So
Well, honestly, in most of the time they show up, they're kind of jerks.
yeah.
The Mon episodes of the Clone Wars, the
Hmm.
Quarren were joining the Separatists.
Yeah.
There are numerous Quarrens in the employ of Jabba the Hutt, and
Hmm.
they're often pirates along with the Weequays. So they're not usually shown positively.
Yeah.
It's-
I like that the um I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry.
That's all right. So they take him out. He bargains with the Quarren
Hmm.
um, to take him to other Mandalorians.
Hmm.
Their only goal is to drown him and take his armor,
Right.
because Beskar is super
Super rare.
super rare and highly valuable, highly sought after. And while they were in the midst of feeding the child and Mando to some kind of sea creature,
Mhm.
in
They are
flies,
rescued.
they are rescued by Bo-Katan, Casca Reeves,
Hmm.
and Axe Woves.
Mhm.
Um, three Mandalorians who then show up and they take off their helmets,
Right.
which is the first time a Mandalorian has done that in this series, and I am so happy that they're finally addressing this, because every Mandalorian until we saw this sect
Mhm.
took off their helmets, did not
Right.
live in their armor. So I was wondering when they were going to get to that disparity.
I like the idea of there being denominations,
Yeah,
of there being
zealots.
different,
Yeah.
yeah, zealots, and different ideas about how the Mandalorians should conduct themselves
Right,
and what their purpose is.
whether they should move forward or go back into the ancient ways.
Hmm.
And the Mandalorian was raised in a group of uh, Mandalorians,
Was
a
it Children
zealous
of the Path or Children of the Watch?
Children of the Watch, because they are descendants of Death Watch,
There
which
is a very um, wonderful subtext here about cultural appropriation.
mm-hmm,
And it was in the first episode,
mm-hmm,
with the armor.
yeah,
The armor, give it to me.
yeah.
You know, you have no right to wear that. It's a
And
very,
technically, like even Bo-Katan would have more right to wear it than
mhm.
Mando, because he wasn't born on Mandalore.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like, it's who has the right?
Right. Exactly. It's is it just armor or is it more? It's
Mhm.
more to the Mandalorians. To the
Right.
rest of the galaxy, it is the greatest armor you could have.
Yeah, and that scene at the end of the last episode of the first season, where she is melting it down
Mm-hmm.
because she doesn't want it to get out
Right.
into other. She doesn't want it flying around the galaxy.
Right.
Um,
So
that's
they fly in, and we find out it's Bo-Katan. I was so excited about this. As soon as
mhm.
I saw her, as soon as I saw the helmet, I'm like,
Yeah,
we got Bo-Katan!
yep. That's what
Yay!
my wife said.
As soon as I saw the helmet, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, yes! Um,
For a second, I thought it was Sabine.
I knew it wouldn't be Sabine quite yet.
Yeah.
Um, if we see Sabine,
Mhm.
she'll be with Ahsoka
Yeah.
in the next episode, which I'm not happy about, but we'll talk about that.
Well, we
We'll
know
get
where
there. Yeah.
we know
So,
where we left Ahsoka.
right. It's traveling with Sabine,
Yeah.
looking for Ezra.
Mhm.
And since this is only 5 years after Jedi, when they would have been going to do that,
Yeah.
or whenever, you know what? I'm not really sure when they found Ahsoka. When Sabine found Ahsoka. That's a good point. All it says at the end is that when Ahsoka showed up, she found Sabine and they went looking for Ezra.
Mhm.
It didn't say at what point she showed up.
Right. Right.
It just says that she's going through everybody and where they ended up. She didn't say, after the war was over, Ahsoka and I went out looking for Ezra. It
Mhm.
was just when she made her way back.
Right.
So maybe she was somewhere else before that.
Mhm.
And
And of
that
course,
was,
Bo-Katan has her own agenda.
oh, well, Bo-Katan,
Which this is strange because, of course, she says she's looking for Darksaber
mhm.
because with it I can rule.
Right.
Mandalore.
It's the ancestral token of
Talisman,
talisman of leadership.
But she has to get it back from Moff Gideon,
Hmm.
which is interesting. And I kept thinking about this because they didn't bring it up in the recap.
Right.
Um, which I, limited time space, but I just thought that was interesting. They didn't bring that up. And they didn't bring up Moff Gideon either.
Right.
And he's in this episode.
They have shown him in previous recaps.
They showed him in the first one.
Yeah. So we knew that he was still going to be a factor.
Right.
I mean, it's impossible for him to not be a factor.
Right.
But I'm glad that it took until the third episode to bring him back.
Mhm.
Because there are now only 5 episodes left in the season.
Which is why I'm glad we finally got to the entree.
Well, I knew that I like the way that they set it up because it's just kind of a soft landing back into the universe.
Yeah.
And I like that I like that they're not doing a more or less kind of just throw you right back into the overarching plot. Uh, they're letting you take a seat with the characters.
He
And
wants to entertain you.
right, and they don't want to overwhelm.
Mm.
So they're giving us every now and again a monster of the week scenario
Yeah.
where we don't have to worry about the serialization, but it's there in the background.
And we also seem to be getting a different setting every time.
Yeah.
It's the first one we got sand, the second one we got snow, this one we get the ocean.
Hmm.
Um,
And the
I don't know
next
if
one
you
we'll get forest because she said
right.
it's a forest planet.
Colvin,
Yeah.
the city of Caledon.
Hmm.
What's interesting to me, I don't know if you noticed this, there's a lot more happening in this episode. Maybe it's just me, but there seemed to be a lot more happening. Um, it seems to move a little faster than the other two.
This episode, um, for me, kind of paralleled that episode in season 7 of the Clone Wars
Mhm.
when Bo-Katan was scouting Ahsoka.
Yeah.
It had a similar feel
Mhm.
to the focus was on Mando, and in that one the focus was on Ahsoka, but it didn't feel like that's what we were watching. It
No.
didn't feel like that's what it was about. It
Mhm.
feels like it's about Bo-Katan and her struggle, not about what we're really seeing on screen. There's a detachment in this episode and in that episode of Clone Wars, which was what season episode. It was the second or third episode with
Mhm.
Ahsoka, so it was later on,
Yeah.
near the end of the series. Um, it's I really like how they're able to do that,
Mhm.
to let you know, look, there is still there are still other parallel stories
Mhm.
that haven't really been resolved that we're going to talk about, but it's going to be in the back burner until it's not.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that this is setting up for the last two, the finales.
But it never feels like it never feels like it's going to be just something off to the side.
Right,
This has to be in the center of the action
right. This is a
because of his
side plot
connection.
that will become the main plot.
Right. Because of his connection, because of the Mandalorian connection.
Right.
Um, this episode, by the way, again, we see how hardcore the Empire is. And this is what I was going to say. I couldn't remember what I was going to say earlier, but I like how this whole world feels like it's been through a war.
Yeah.
Um, it's like the Empire fell. We had our interplanetary celebrations. Yay, wonderful fireworks. But then life's got to go on.
Right. This is
And the universe has been torn apart.
we
It's got to
are
rebuild itself.
we are now in the part of Star Wars that I equate to the end of Finding Nemo.
Mhm.
The Death Star blows up, and everybody looks at each other in their individual bags and goes, "Now what?"
Mhm. Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
we do now? Because
Mhm.
we're stuck in these bags and we don't know what to do next. We didn't think this far ahead.
Well, the
We didn't think this was actually going to work, so now what do we do?
it's like I saw a documentary one time about World War One.
Mhm.
I think there was a great quote. Someone said, "The World War destroyed a world, and no one knew what would come in its place."
Right.
And that's apt here because you can feel the wake of a war.
Mm-hmm.
The Empire had been such a presence, and now it's not a presence anymore.
Right.
But okay, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And
Okay, there's the New Republic, but they've only been around for 5 years. They don't really have a handle on the control of everything. They're still building the government back.
they're still trying to figure out what that control is.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And they're
Exactly.
paranoid. We saw that in the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something. This is something very much. This is the reason that I like Rogue One so much,
Yeah.
because you can feel it
Mm-hmm.
in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Um,
The
it
tone of
was
the
a,
Mandalorian is very much like Rogue One, and I
yes,
appreciate that.
yes. But cut loose from the thumb of the Empire, you now have all these criminal factions.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can pretty much do what they want because, it's like you said, it's between the thumb of the Empire and the control of the New Republic.
Right. So there's not really there's
There's not a
there's not
democracy.
right. There's not a consistent um, there's not a consistency in policy
Right.
throughout the galaxy,
Mm.
as there was in the old Republic, in the old Republic, and even in the Empire. Uh, they're struggling to kind of restore,
Rebuild.
yeah, and rebuild, and that can't that's not easy. If you look at the history of democracy in our world
Mm.
and building a democracy from a dictatorship,
Mm.
as we've seen in the Middle East, is a decades-long process
Yeah.
that has to be overseen by very conscientious people. So, and that's just for one country on
Mm.
one planet. You're trying to build a democratic government of a galaxy.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
sheer magnitude of that is just staggering.
Yeah. It
And
takes centuries to pull it together.
you would think, and
Mm.
we're 5 years into this transition back into they have a framework. It's not like they're doing this for the first time, but it was a decimated.
Well, you saw in the first episode, it's like it just, I mean, the smoke had cleared from the Death Star,
Right.
and those guys were running in to take over, and it was just like,
Right. This is the Old West after the Civil War.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
control, but there's not control. There's
no,
law, but there's no enforcement. There's
Mhm.
possibility of reprisal by figures in power, but it's unlikely.
So comparatively in Star Wars at this point, we're still in Reconstruction,
Right.
and Reconstruction goes on and on and on, and it's like it's like it breeds even more problems.
Right, because I mean they're still largely in transitional mode
Mhm.
by the time the First Order blows up Hosnian Prime.
Right.
I mean they're still a fledgling government, really. 30 years.
Mhm.
That is not a lot of time,
Mhm.
really.
But you still have, and I thought that they're really introduced it in this one, but they introduced it in last season too. The holdouts,
Hmm.
the Empire's still there.
Right.
Um,
They haven't gotten rid of all of the high-ranking people who still have the cult of personality, the
mm,
loyalty. Uh, so there's still people like Moff Gideon. He's
mhm,
not alone. He's
yeah.
still he's probably just one of the ones that still has more uh, control, more resources.
Well, when they take over this ship, this Imperial ship, that commander, I kept waiting for him to listen to the radio and go, "What a bunch of a-holes." This is the
Yes,
guy from
he
Guardians of the
he is
Galaxy.
the the prison warden in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
He's Bosch on
Yeah.
that the show Bosch.
Hmm.
I was looking at him. I'm like, oh, they got him.
Hmm.
Because he shows up in like everything too. He's one of those faces that actually
Yeah.
got a starring role in a TV show, but really he's a character actor.
Hmm.
Um, and he's
I
really
just,
good at just about everything he does too.
it's kind of this weird sort of Nazi thing where I'm willing to kill everybody to get this mission
Yeah,
done, and I'm willing to, because he kills his subordinates, and it's
just on
he
an or
orders,
all he says is, "You know what you have to do.
"Long live the Empire."
Long live the Empire," and you're like, "Oh yeah, they're gonna die."
Then he has like this weird cyanide capsule in his tooth.
This that electrical.
Yeah,
It was like a biological EMP.
yeah,
Which
yeah. Um, but no, they get aboard that ship. That was great.
it
That
was.
was great.
It I yeah, I genuinely loved this episode.
Why did they send stormtroopers? Really? You know that's not going
There's
to
only
work.
there's only 4 life forms. Oh, they're Mandalorians. We gotta close all the doors.
He did not
Close
think that out.
all the doors.
He did not think that
Close
out.
the door. Which one? All of them.
There's one thing we got to talk about before we go, and this is important, and that is the massive presence of women in Star Wars. Ever since Disney took over,
Yeah.
ever since Disney bought this property, and I am so encouraged by that
Me too.
because Star Wars generally, when I was a kid, Star Wars was all Leia,
Yeah.
and here you get. By this point, you have had this massive volley of great female characters.
And even the prequels, Lucas
Yeah.
tried to have a much larger presence
Mhm.
for women, and especially in the Clone Wars,
Mhm.
The women Jedi
Yeah.
really took a front seat in a lot of episodes. Ayla Secura,
Mhm.
Luminara Unduli, uh, several others.
Shakti.
Shakti, Ahsoka Tano,
Mhm.
uh, and the Mandalorians.
Right. Cara Dune.
Yeah, I
But I
love
mean,
that.
I love the fact that there's an equal weight there.
Hmm. I would just like to see more women of color on the screen.
Well, there
Um,
will be
well,
with Ahsoka.
right, but I'm talking. Yes, there's a huge presence of women, but it's mostly white women,
Mhm.
and they're doing better at inclusion of men of color,
Mhm.
but they're still really struggling on the women of color in Star Wars.
Right.
They're a little better with Asian representation than Marvel,
Mhm.
but not a lot.
Well, they've had one Asian character and they killed her off.
Right, exactly. So,
Like pretty quickly.
very quickly. Disastrously, too, because that would have been a hell of a character.
Yeah. Yeah. But
But,
no, this. I'm sorry.
so I also really like to move over to the lighter kind of toss away parts of this episode, if there are any. Uh, the child with the frog people.
It
I
still made me
was
nervous because when he left
terrified.
him with the frog people.
And he's pushed up against the glass, looking at the eggs, and then one hatches. I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
is there gonna be some terrible side plot that he's gonna be trying to eat these babies?
Yeah.
And when we get back
They're playing with it.
they're helping to clean it and playing with the new hatchling, and they're
Hmm.
showing the baby how to play with it
Hmm.
gently, and there's no eating,
I
and
like that.
I do too. I love how Mando just goes, "You be on your best behavior, your best manners. You know
Be
what I
respectful.
mean. Be respectful. You know what I'm talking about." Which was his way of saying, "Don't eat the effing eggs," without saying, "Don't eat the effing eggs."
But did you see what he had to eat?
I
Oh
love
God.
it. It like jumps up on his face, and he finally got a face hugger, and he
Yeah.
just pulls it off his face. Don't play with your food. He's having fun with it. I loved
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
I the child in this. I'm excited for what they're going to do with the child. Um,
I'm always irritated when they throw kids and dogs into something because I'm thinking because they think that kids and dogs have to be just massive destructive shenanigans,
yeah,
and that always drives me crazy. But they don't do that here
no,
because kids and dogs are only cute when they're doing kids and dog things,
hmm,
and that's what they do here. They let him be a kid.
right, and
They let him
but
be a 3-year-old.
I'm really excited about what Ahsoka could mean for the child.
Yeah,
Um, now,
I'm ready for an explanation.
right now, here's where I wish it wasn't Ahsoka.
Mm.
Yes, the fact that Dave Filoni is in on all of this means that this is not uh, messing up the Rebels continuity.
It also means he's thought it out.
Right. He has a plan to still to it's not going to contradict. And
Right.
I that is my big saving
Because
grace.
Dave Filoni worked on Rebels,
Dave Filoni created Ahsoka Tano.
created. Right.
So I'm confident that whatever he's doing washes with her arc.
Mhm.
My problem is more with Ahsoka's decision clearly to have nothing to do with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Troubles me, but we'll get that answer, and you know we'll get that answer
Hmm.
because Filani knows why she's not with Luke building
Right.
the temple.
Mm.
He knows. We don't, but he does.
He knows.
And he knows why the child was not at the training facility as an 80-year-old
Hmm.
training under Luke. He knows. We don't. We will.
Hmm.
And that the Ahsoka coming in will connect those dots. I was just kind of hoping, I don't know, maybe to not bring her in because you know what I think it is. I think it's because uh, I want the actress who has been Ahsoka
Michelle
Tano,
Rodriguez. Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
um, whose name I can now somehow not remember. Um,
Forgive us.
yeah,
Ashley Eckstein.
forgive me, Ashley Eckstein. Um, I love her, and Ahsoka is as much hers, I feel, as she is
But
Dave
Michelle
Filoni.
Rodriguez is a hell of an actress.
I thought they were getting Rosario Dawson.
To Rosario Dawson? I'm sorry.
Rosario Dawson would have was actively petitioning to play the role. Um, I don't know if that's who got cast. I don't have any idea what's coming up in the next
Hang
episode.
on, I'll find out.
I'm getting there too. Um, if they even decide to, ah, she's not listed in the next episode yet. Although Sasha Banks, who is also in this episode as Cosca Reeves, is also shown as being in the next episode without a character name.
Mm-hmm. And there are two names in the next one that make me really excited.
Yes.
Because Grief and Karen Dune come back.
Yes. And that is... Oh, okay. Axe Wolves is in the next one, too. So...
Okay.
It's probably she's just...
Well, here's the thing, though. Disney has been so good about not letting things out.
Yeah.
Your only avenue...
that they were able to keep the child a secret
mm-hmm.
until the episode aired.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be honest with you. When that was introduced, I wasn't so sure about it.
I wasn't excited, but also, yes, I understand where you're going because
I thought I don't want to know Yoda's species.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to know all of that. And I know that Jon Favreau wanted to explore that a little bit. His species doesn't even have a name.
Right. And Yoda and Yaddle never told the Jedi Council where their system is.
Right.
It's not in databanks. Like, nobody knows.
It's a complete mystery.
Right.
And I wasn't so sure about having the kid in the series because I kind of, like I say, never work with kids and dogs. Throwing a child into a series like this is kind of, I wasn't too sure about it.
As soon as the Mudhorn happens, though,
yeah, you kind of know.
You realize there's something to the overall Star Wars universe that's probably going to be important here.
Well, and they don't have, once again, they don't have the kid with all kinds of destructive kids shenanigans.
Right. There aren't usually side plots. The side plots, the most side plotty he gets was the eggs in the last episode.
Well,
but
and
even
again,
that was important to drive everything forward.
Again, they let him be a baby. They're not trying to make him into comedy gold.
Right.
He's cute because he's doing cute baby things.
Because he's a cute baby, and that's all it is.
Right. And they don't make the mistake of turning him into some kind of...
He's not Dennis the Menace.
Right, exactly. That was what I was afraid they were going to do with this. I just wasn't sure where this was going to go, and they've done very, very well with it.
I trust Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
And Kathleen Kennedy with Star Wars, despite Episode 9. Rise of Skywalker, not of The Mandalorian.
Yeah. This time you are talking about them.
I'm just really excited and just amazed at what they're doing with this series.
They thought it out.
This has a plan. This feels like the pre-writer's strike Lost.
Yeah.
when you felt like they actually knew where they were going until the writer's strike threw them off of pace, and then they had to come up with what they came up with at the end of Lost.
Right.
But this is pre-writer's strike Lost, where you're like, they definitely have an
the series Lost.
They know, yes. They definitely know where they're going with this. This is all mapped out. And then the writer's strike happened, and they had to improvise exponentially.
Yeah.
And make it almost unintelligible. I still love the show, but took a weird turn. this this has that feel like, Favreau, Filani, and Kennedy have had the conversation and said, this is where the story's going to end. We think we need X amount of seasons to do it, and that's all. And Kennedy was probably like, okay, we'll give you 5 seasons or whatever, however long you need to just do what you're going to do.
I'm trying to find a consistency in Bryce Dallas Howard, because she directed this,
Mm-hmm.
and she also directed the episode in the first season with the ATST.
Yes.
Big action set pieces, a strong female presence, mixed with moments of domesticity.
Mm-hmm.
The frogs,
Mm-hmm.
the kid eating the soup. These little moments. I'm trying to find some connection in her directing. She's very good.
She's very good. I don't. For
You can
me,
tell when Taika Waititi does an episode because it's loaded with a lot of comedy.
right.
Her episodes are not loaded with a lot of comedy.
No, she has the benefit of pedigree, but the detriment of these are her first 2 directing.
Right.
So we can't see. I was just talking to my friend before we recorded about this and saying I would love to see Bryce Dallas Howard get a feature. Not just a feature, a Star Wars feature.
Right.
Because I think what I've noticed is, especially in her action sequences, she captures the best of her father,
Mm-hmm.
but she also integrates. You can tell that she's studied J.J. Abrams too in terms of action. Her action pieces are very, very fast paced.
Mm-hmm.
In a way to say,
And unexpected.
And the way that I always feel J.J. Abrams does things is he makes things fast so that you don't pay attention to how not written they are.
I have a feeling J.J. Abrams writes the action first.
Yeah, and
and then writes the scene around it.
He builds his films around action sequences.
Right.
In a way that kind of like North by Northwest, only not often as successful.
Yeah. When JJ wants to do something, it's great. When JJ is required to do something,
yes.
It doesn't work.
Right. Which you can see very, very blatantly and clearly between Episode 7 and Episode 9.
Mm-hmm.
Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker. Same director,
Right.
Same co-writer, director,
Mm-hmm.
very different tones.
Mm-hmm.
Very different concepts of films.
Right.
Because one he had a hand in, and the other one he was told what to do, it feels
right.
like. And The Rise of Skywalker is what everybody was afraid of.
Mm-hmm. I actually like Rise of Skywalker.
With sequels, though.
Yeah.
Because it's decisively a cash cow, not really designed to move the story forward. It's designed to just kind of
wrap it up.
Yes.
It's designed to wrap it up.
There's a way to do that, but still have there's things gonna go on after this that's different from the way that they kind of
It tries very much to close the door.
Right, in a way.
And Star Wars is very hard to close the door on.
Right. And they don't need to. And The Mandalorian is that door being flung wide open.
Yeah.
In a way that I hope they translate to post-sequel trilogy characters. I know Kelly Marie Tran is getting the Rose Tico show series on Disney Plus, which
the Rose Tico show.
The Rose
I'd watch
Tico
that.
show. If that's what they call it, I am there for that.
The Rose Tico
The
Show.
Rose Tico Show.
Sounds like a talk show in the 90s.
It does. Which would be kind of a perfect HoloNet thing for the,
Now, is that I'm wondering, is that a prequel thing? Is that a prequel series?
I do
With her and
not
her sister.
have any idea if
Mm.
Paige is going to be a part of it or if it's going to be post Rise of Skywalker.
Mm.
I would love it to be post TROS.
Yeah.
Just because I want to see that universe and what they're gonna do with actually being able to see the direct aftermath and the world building. But by the same token, it's basically just going to be exactly what we have right now with the Mandalorian because it's the exact same end. To
Yeah.
the big empire falls. Now what?
You know what I love about this whole Mandalorian series? The naysayers are struggling
Oh yeah.
because you can't really criticize this series at all.
Not in terms
There's,
of.
I mean, you would have to nitpick it.
You would have to nitpick it, and um, you would have to have my sentiments about Ahsoka, only not be
Mhm.
willing to talk yourself out of them while you're making an argument for it, which
Right.
is exactly what I did.
This is
Moments
another.
ago, I basically said, I don't like that they're bringing in Ahsoka Tano. I'm happy that they're bringing in Ahsoka Tano by the end of it.
There's a vlog series that I've been looking at about this show, and this guy nitpicks everything to death. And I can see in his eyes when he's talking about this series that he is struggling to find something wrong with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's.
And it's driving him crazy. He can't
Right.
deny
It's
it.
it's the same. It's the same thing with Rogue One. The
Mhm.
naysayers had a hard time saying this isn't Star Wars because it was the most Star Warsy thing to
Oh,
come out.
I think they had an easier time with Rogue One.
Yeah,
Because I
but
heard a
even
lot
still,
of,
Rogue One was still harder to do, in my
yeah.
opinion. It would have been. It's harder to believe that people are that against Rogue One and the
Yeah. Now they
Mandalorian.
were all over Last Jedi like a pack of wild dogs. I mean,
Well, that's because they were wrong and don't understand didn't understand uh, the mythos that Ryan Johnson was trying to expand instead of just the iconography and here's things that look like Star Wars. He was trying to develop the world beyond the
mhm.
Skywalker saga,
Yeah.
and um, it was ambitious, and it was more
Yeah.
ambitious than anything anybody thought Star Wars was going to be.
Mhm.
So the closed-minded of the fan base rebelled against it,
It's still rebelling against it.
and are still, even though now in the um, light of the last 3 years
Mhm.
since it came out, I am noticing online a greater surge in favor of it
Mhm.
than there was at the time of release.
Yes.
The people
Particularly
who,
in the wake of Episode 9,
right, people
The Rise of
are
Skywalker.
returning to The Last Jedi and saying, okay, well now I see what was happening
Mhm.
and why
And
that was
it was
better.
great because it finally gave Luke a proper epilogue.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
it,
for me, that's
we've talked about The Last Jedi on several occasions on the show.
several occasions.
And there will
It
be,
comes up a lot.
it'll probably come up at least one more full episode because I'm still tossing around doing a sequel trilogy episode.
Mhm.
Because we've not done the whole of the sequel trilogy
We
together
talked
yet.
about every Star Wars movie, but we haven't talked about the sequel trilogy together.
Right. So,
Um,
but
I'm sorry.
this, I really love where they're going with this and
I do too.
how
The
they're.
inclusion of animated
That's
characters into the
exactly what I was just about to say.
yeah, that's really clever.
It's 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 great in that they're telling people, if you want to understand these stories,
Mhm.
you have to watch the animated shows.
Right.
Um, which is great until you get to Resistance, which
I
is
don't like Resistance.
it's okay
Hmm.
at best, which is unfortunate because it could have been really good, but they only gave it 2 seasons. They didn't really have a good premise for it.
It didn't look like they thought it out too well either.
No, it looked like they needed another animated show, and Dave Filoni was deep in pre-production of The Mandalorian at that point,
Yeah.
I think. And he came up with the concept, but he was not an active participant, and his absence was felt
Yeah.
in Resistance, especially after his domineering presence in the Clone Wars and Rebels.
Mhm.
He was sorely missed. His storytelling uh, nuance was sorely missed in Resistance. Um, but yeah, that's what I have for this one. I loved that.
I like the direction it's going.
I do too, and I'm very excited for this, and it will, like the first season, be over far too soon.
Mhm.
I think that about wraps it up here for me. You got anything else?
No.
All right.
Oh, there is one more thing.
Oh, okay.
The controversy that came up over the last episode. I don't know if you heard about this.
I heard some rufflings about it, but I didn't really look into why people were upset with the last episode.
It was the dark humor over him eating the eggs.
But that was funny.
It was funny and it was done for comedy, but a lot of people were upset by that because they said it makes him into is it making him into a villain? And I was like, no, it's not making him into a
It's
villain.
making him
It just means he's
into
hungry.
yeah. He's a sentient creature that does not have social skills.
He just
Especially he's
eats.
a baby. He puts it in his mouth. I mean that's what
Babies do
babies
four
do.
things. They eat, they sleep, they pee, and they poop. That's what babies do.
Pretty much. And they cry. They do 5 things.
Well, and uh, but they get it back in this one.
Yeah.
There is a redemption in this one. So,
Yes. Yes. And yeah. I okay.
but that's all I got.
I disagree with that take on. Anyway, you can find all of our episodes, especially the first 2 episodes of our Mando Minis, as I am kind of calling them, I guess, as we roll
The
along.
earlier, funnier ones.
Yeah, the Mando Minis. You can find all of our stuff at thepodbaydorspodcast.wordpress.com. Find us on iTunes and YouTube. Hit the like, subscribe, and the notification so you know when we got a new thing coming up. When we get a new thing posted. You can find us on Twitter at pod_bay. That is also our handle at Patreon. And the pod bay doors are now closed.
The mission has been completed.